and welcome to ERDC Beyond the Gates. I'm Annette Kirkland. This season, we're focusing on today, tomorrow, always. We will highlight how ERDC is delivering impactful solutions today, driving innovation for tomorrow, and prioritizing people always. From groundbreaking research to enduring partnerships, we explore the power of progress rooted in purpose. Today, I'm going to be speaking with Dr. William Reckling. He is a geographer with the ERDC Geospatial Research Laboratory, otherwise known as GRL, and we're going to be talking about modeling the path to recovery. Good morning, Dr. Reckling.
Hello, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being here. We're going to talk about a very, very important subject, but really cool subject that I'd like to hear about is you. So can you tell me about yourself, your background, and your role at ERDC?
Sure. I've been with ERDC for 3 years now. I started 1 year as a contractor, and then I was hired on full-time. I work on 3D teams, and you'll hear about some of that work here in our conversation. Previous to this, I was a partner at an engineering firm where we helped companies with remote sensing projects. That included unmanned aerial systems, UAS, crewed aircraft, where we collected LiDAR, surveyed things, and we also analyzed the results of that. I eventually earned my PhD in marine, earth, and atmospheric science with a focus on UAS environmental remote sensing. I'm a licensed FAA Part 107 UAS pilot, and I'm a licensed professional land surveyor in North Carolina.
So it'd be hard to start listing all your your titles on whenever I introduced you. So you've got a lot. You got a lot of little hats that you wear. So I understand.
I do, and they're all intertwined. It is all something I'm very interested in. It keeps it exciting.
Well, as I tell people all the time, the people that we interview on this show, you can't teach passion, and I can already tell you're passionate about what you do.
That is correct.
Okay, so if you'd like, we're going to dive deep into this subject matter, and we're here today to talk about how ERDC supports disaster recovery. So what is disaster damage assessment, and why does it matter when disasters strike?
Right. So damage assessment in general is the process of collecting information, analyzing it, and then we use that to determine the extent of damage to a landscape or infrastructure. In this case, this includes 2D data, 3D data from a variety of sources. And it's important to do this because we can estimate the extent or severity of the disaster. We can allocate or position resources to the right locations. And then after the event, it helps with the debris, the cleanup mission.
Okay, so one of the things that makes ERDC so special is how we support both civil works and military missions. So what is battle damage assessment, and how did something built for military use become so valuable for helping communities recover from disasters?
Right. So this project started as a battle damage assessment project, and that is assessing battle damage, right? So a building has been destroyed. We can estimate through 2D imagery from a variety of sources if that building was damaged or not and the extent of the damage. Now, we can also do that in the 3D realm of things. So we can estimate the volume of damage. So how much of that building was damaged. So that work that we did for battle damage assessment directly translates to disaster damage assessment.
Right. So after a hurricane, though, wildfire or other disaster, one of the biggest challenges is figuring out where the damage is and how bad it is. So how do 2D and 3D models help paint that picture? And by the way, 2D, 3D models, they're also cool. Studying the information to form these questions. It's really so cool what the technology is right now.
Right. So there's a few things here. So first, we can make a map that helps you visualize where the damage is the worst, where the damage is, where the work needs to happen. So that's the first thing. everything in geography is visual, right? So it helps people visualize what's happening and where. But secondly, we can also quantify the damage, right, by using these methods. So, like, is the building damaged 80%? Is it completely destroyed? Has that building moved? Where did it move to? Things like that. So having those visuals helps the managers or the resources on the ground more effectively do their jobs.
Right. So with that process, what does the process of mapping out debris look like? You're using satellite images, aerial photos, and point cloud data to map out debris. For someone listening at home, what does that process actually look like?
Right. So I'm going to break this piece up into 2D and 3D.
Okay.
So for the 2D damage assessment, the first thing we do is we take satellite imagery, and we can use a machine learning model that's been trained on damage from all over the world, right? So we train this on regions everywhere you can imagine, and it can give us polygon shapes representing damaged buildings, okay? That's the 2D piece. I work on the 3D team, and we can take those 2D outputs from that damage assessment to then perform a 3D analysis. So we've done this now for 3 different events. We've done it 3 different ways, but the first way we do it is we can take stereo pairs of imagery before the event and after the event. So 2 images before, 2 images after, and we can create a 3D reconstruction. So from the images, we now have a 3D point cloud or mesh model. We can take those 2D shapes from the 2D analysis and then find those areas and do a before and after analysis on those 3D volumes. So that's what it looks like from satellite. We've also done this from aerial photos collected from the Civil Air Patrol. In Hurricane Helene, we had thousands of photos for each area. You can make a very high resolution 3D reconstruction, so a 3D model from those images, and then do the same analysis I just said a minute ago.
Right.
And then lastly, LiDAR, which is an active remote sensing method where it's using lasers to make measurements. We can also use that data to do a before and after analysis, the same as before. That's what the process looks like. That's a general overview of the process.
Okay. So in a disaster, time is critical. How does this technology help first responders and emergency managers move faster and make smarter decisions?
So the first thing that we're able to help with is routing. So we are able to see where there are open roads, blockages across roads, and where the resources need to go. And that kind of rolls into the second thing. So that's the allocation of personnel and material. So where do we need to position things to help with the recovery, with feeding people, with sheltering people? And then the third part, and that's really what our focus has been, is the planning for the debris mission. So how much debris is left on the ground? Where does it need to go? And how much of it is there? In the Maui wildfire situation, the debris needed to be moved off island. So they needed to plan on how many boats they needed. In Hurricane Helene, they wanted to estimate how many dump trucks they would need to fill and where that material would need to go. So for that's how we help with our technology post-storm.
So you were involved with the Maui fires?
Yes, we did the Maui wildfires, we've done Hurricane Helene, and we've done the LA wildfires now.
Well, and I'm sure you learned something as you went on, like, oh, we need to do it like this, or this is better. And it's always a learning situation. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the first event that we participated in was the Maui wildfires. And we use satellite imagery to do that work. And the problem with satellite imagery is after a lot of these events, there can be cloud cover, there can be smoke, there
Right.
may not even be the coverage that we need to do the work that we need to do. So we were able to do that with satellite imagery. The next event we did was Hurricane Helene. The satellite imagery was not collected. There was a lot of cloud cover of the satellite imagery. The Civil Air Patrol, which is a volunteer organization with the Air Force, performed imagery flights in crewed aircraft. We were able to use that imagery to do the work, to do the 3D reconstructions. And then with the LA wildfires, we were able to use LiDAR data provided by USGS. So we've learned through these events how to adapt our methodology to take these different inputs,
Mm-hmm.
but we're also learning how to handle these massive amounts of data. So collecting the imagery is time consuming, downloading it, and processing it. They're all very time consuming. So we're learning how to best distribute resources, write code to get the imagery, things like that to improve the process each time.
Right. So, I mean, ERDC is data driven. It's all about the data, but the data informs everyone how to do things. And so data is so important. So thank you for what you do in disaster relief and everything else that you do to help the nation. So
yes, we're happy to do it. And I can say everybody that works on these projects. So, I get emails that are, how can we help? How can we help with this effort? And we've always been able to build a great team to do this work.
right. People are always willing to help. That's a great part. So as you say, part of this work focuses on estimating how much debris needs to be removed after a disaster. So how do these models make that process more efficient? And I know you've touched on that some.
Right. So there's a couple pieces to the debris removal process. So in Maui, they wanted to know how much debris was left on a particular building footprint, right? So they wanted to know how much of the house was left on the ground there. So that was one analysis we did for Maui. In California, they wanted to know how much was left on the parcel. So, and then plus 6 inches of soil. So they removed some soil as part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
So our work is to estimate that amount of debris for whatever criteria they have, but it's also to locate where it is. So which parcels have debris on them. And then also we are looking at validating the cleanup. So how many trucks were taken off that parcel? How does that align with our models?
Right. Does it usually figure out about the same?
Well, we're still working on that piece. That's moving forward. But we're looking at that.
Okay. So as you referenced, you guys helped with Hurricane Helene. So how did you help teams on the ground there?
Yeah. So again, they wanted to know where the damage was. And that didn't just mean a destroyed building. We also were able to use our methodology to say, there used to be a house here. Now there's not a house.
Right.
So where did that go? So that's one thing. Or we found a house here where there didn't used to be one. So some houses had been moved off their foundation. So we were able to locate that. A major piece during Hurricane Helene was also where were the damaged roads. There was a lot of impassable roads during that event. And we had some people on our team that had done some work with determining road passability. So we did some of that. And then lastly, we were able to estimate like where there were debris piles and their locations in the 3D models. And then the people in the field would take a picture with their phone that would have some geotagged information.
Mm-hmm.
And we could look at that in the 3D model and estimate the volume of debris. So not only that, by doing that, we could then digitize the piles in 2D, and then we used a machine learning algorithm to determine where other debris piles were based on the training that we had done with those geolocated photos from field crews.
Okay. So you refer to teams, and teamwork makes the dream work. So how many people are in your teams usually?
Yeah, so we probably started out with just a couple during the Maui wildfires. During Hurricane Helene, it was an all hands on deck kind of thing. I think we probably had 8 or 9 people working on that event. Just the data management piece was so large, and the urgency to get that work done. So we had probably 8 or 9 people on that. And then for the LA wildfires, we also probably had 4 or 5 people working on that.
Okay. So do y'all partner with outside organizations?
Well, this work all goes hand in hand with FEMA. So
Right.
we are partnering with FEMA on this.
Okay.
During Hurricane Helene, I was actually in the Emergency Operations Center in North Carolina, and we were able to work directly and talk to FEMA, the state debris people, all those type of agencies, Civil Air Patrol people. They were all there while we were doing the work.
Right. So sometimes, as you've already alluded to this earlier, but the satellite images aren't available right away because of clouds or other issues. How are you overcoming these challenges and still getting accurate assessments quickly?
Right. We did touch on this
Yes.
a little bit ago. So during the events, I have some slides that I like to show from these events. We can pull all the satellite imagery available down, and there'll be usually tremendous cloud or smoke cover over these areas right after or during the event. So, with the Hurricane Helene, our solution was to use the Civil Air Patrol imagery. The problem with doing that is now instead of 2 satellite images from after that you're making the 3D models from, you've got 1,000 images for just downtown Asheville. You've got 1,000 images for Hickory, North Carolina. And that increases the processing time and complexity, but it's making a very high resolution model in the end. So there's some trade-offs there. And then also I mentioned that we've used LiDAR data, which can also be collected right after an event. And that mitigates some of the cloud cover issues because, they're able to plan around the weather.
Right. The technology is just ever evolving every year. It's mind blowing to me. So, disaster recovery isn't just about rebuilding, though. It's also about keeping communities and infrastructure secure. How does this technology help protect critical facilities and support national security?
Right. So this effort, it helps us find where roads are clear for emergency response. So for ambulances, fire, utility crews, it helps them get to the hospitals, the power stations, the water treatment facilities, and get them back online. It protects lifeline infrastructure. So the swift removal of debris in this area prevents cascading failures that could cripple things like essential services.
Right.
In Helene, generators were running out of fuel. They didn't have water for weeks, things like that. And then also this prevents secondary hazards. So there can be hazardous materials, fire risks, disease, things like that. So helping with the clearing, it reduces the chance of further public health or environmental problems. And I think also one last thing is this supports the continuity of government operations.
Right.
So by helping people have access to government buildings, data centers, community centers, communication areas, that helps with that as well.
It's just all around super important. So looking ahead, okay, here you go. As the listeners listen to this show today, what would you like them to understand about this technology and what you do?
Yeah, so we've worked on 3 events now, and there will be more. This isn't something that's going to stop happening. So, in each of these events, we've learned some lessons, and we've applied them to the next event. We've shown that we can adapt the data, the inputs, to get us what we need, and we're also learning what else we can do with the outputs from our process. So we're working on this, and we're pushing the technology forward to help these kind of emergencies.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Reckling, for being on the show. And we appreciate what you do. And thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Gates. We'll come back at you next week. Have a wonderful day.